I hardly want to sound like some questionable doomsday prepper with a shipping container full of World War II surplus gas masks buried deep in the backyard. But, dude, are you even half ready for the power failures that seem inevitable, at least here on the eastern seaboard of Australia, as we climb out of winter and head towards the warmer weather in 2022? I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au, and I get new cars cheap in Australia. Website. Card. This video is sponsored by Bluetti, the manufacturers of battery inverter portable power stations. About a month ago now, it came to light, pardon the pun, that the eastern states from Queensland to Taswegia face an electricity shortfall, according to an agency you've never heard of called the National Energy Market Operator. This crisis is mostly artificial, meaning it's been manufactured by arseholes because it suits them commercially. This is, of course, not a great deal of consolation if you and the family are suddenly just sitting there in a deafeningly silent lounge room that's also as dark as the bottom of a friggin' coal mine. We're talking 1.5 to 2 gigawatts of power shortfall in some states during peak periods. In other words, a situation where demand for electricity exceeds the supply. In other words, you flick the friggin' switch on together with thousands of other people like you, and the grid just does not cope. Everything goes black and quiet all of a sudden. There's not all that much suddenly which separates us from the animals. Thank you so much. Politicians who spend too much time with their spin doctors in the prayer room, perhaps, engineering jobs for the friggin' boys, and not enough time securing basic services like electricity, which is, after all, what we elected them to do for us. Anyway, it seems to me that the risk of power failures over the next few months is quite high, unfortunately, here in the formerly lucky country, and therefore you are going to be something of a goose if you don't go a bit Lord Baden-Powell now and get prepared for them. The Bluetti AC300 and its B300 modular home backup battery system is designed for exactly this kind of thing. You can connect up to 4 B300 battery units, and the AC300 inverter module will provide up to 3,000 watts of backup electricity, 6,000 watts on surge, and potentially days of reliable emergency power, therefore. The lithium iron phosphate chemistry in the battery is reliable and good for over 3,500 cycles, which is roughly one charge-discharge cycle a day for more or less 10 years, and no electrician is required. You just sit this on the floor, you turn it on, and you've got electricity. Bluetti has a winter sale on right now for about the next 24 hours. I will put a link in the description. If you think rooftop solar is going to save your day during a power failure, you might need to get that perception reality check, because many rooftop solar systems, especially ones that feed power back into the grid, are designed to shut down automatically if the grid fails. This is a fail-safe designed to protect the poor dudes working to restore the power. Like, if all of the solar inverters remained energized, it's quite bad for the dudes touching the wires, doing the repairs, basically. Even some solar systems with home batteries automatically shut down during a power failure. So this would be one of the first things I would check if I were you. If you've got rooftop solar with or without a battery, find out exactly what happens to your system if the power fails. If you don't have rooftop solar, or if your particular rooftop solar system is useless during a power failure, it's a great idea now to start getting properly organised. And I think the easiest way to do this is to make an inventory of the things you need to run during a power failure and then figure out exactly how you're going to run them. To me, it seems like lighting, cooking, keeping the refrigerator chilled, bit of TV, and keeping the phones and computer operational are the main priorities in a 21st century, more or less civilized home. So you just have to figure out how you're going to achieve all of that, right? And here, some appreciation for basic energy management is probably going to be helpful. Like boiling water, dude, seems mundane. We do it every day, but it's the main process underlying so much of all cooking, plus making the coffee and tea throughout the day, right? And yet it is in fact so energy intensive to heat water. Water is one of the hardest substances to heat up. So maybe if the power is down, it's going to be best to do that with gas. In fact, all of the cooking, right? If you've got a barbecue, and let's face it, it is downright un-Australian not to have one, you are more or less sorted for cooking, okay? Might be a good time to get that second gas bottle, just saying, because, Murphy's Law. When do you suppose the gas is going to run out? As for lighting, LEDs in particular are extremely energy efficient light sources, but given the way that lights in the ceiling are actually wired in, it's quite hard to power them using a battery or a generator system, right? Certainly without an electrician, it's going to be almost impossible. It's easier to run a few LED lamps, like plug in 240-volt LED lamps with an extension cord from a backup battery inverter system or a generator, whatever, and just supplement that with some battery-powered LED lights. If you had, say, 5 or 6 mains-powered plug-in lamps totaling 100 or 120 watts, that's going to be enough light for the living areas and the kitchen in a regulation household, right? Enough so that the joint will not feel completely Game of Thrones or Tower of London, whatever. If you're a regular viewer of this fine channel, you've doubtless heard me talk about Olight before. They make some great LED alternatives for light when the power goes down, like the O-Bulb Pro and the Swivel, and a bunch of conventional torches that will run for longer than the duration of one night at medium sort of intensities. And they're all USB rechargeable. So with that in mind, light is really not going to be such a big hurdle to overcome. If you get prepared early, you probably only need 5 or 6 hours of light per 24-hour period with the power down. And there are endless battery LED work lights on offer at Jaycar or Bunnings also. And if you've got some battery-powered power tools, whatever ecosystem from Azito to Milwaukee, right, there will be a compatible lantern in that range. And if you've got 3 or 4 batteries, in practice, you will have endless hours of light on tap right there. Light at night is such a comfort thing too. And at the risk of being a completely sexist, ageist pig, especially so for the women and the kiddies. Very reassuring indeed. And thankfully, this is easy to prep for in advance. And everything you buy to provide light in this situation is going to be useful at other times as well. Like that work light is going to be great for working under the house or something. And torches, whatever, very useful in the glove box or in the pocket or in your bag, dude. You might want some portable light close at hand in a place that you can locate easily, such as right alongside the front door or the bedside table or in your pocket, whatever, because there's generally no warning when the power goes down. Nobody sends you an SMS and says, "Get ready, dude. Deafening silence plus pitch blackness in 1 minute time," or something. They just don't do that. It just happens and you go, get the number of that bus, right? Everything just goes really, really dark in a big hurry, and you need to be able to put your hands on a light source primarily so that you can then proceed to get the rest of makeshift civilization up and running. So, cooking and lighting under control. But, dude, there are some remaining things that you are going to need proper AC power for. I'm talking the refrigerator, the TV, the modem, the router, the Wi-Fi, keeping the mobiles charged, things of that nature. If it's hot, you might want to run a couple of pedestal fans. They're not that energy intensive. If it's cold, you might want to wrap yourself in Tiffany or a blanket. Preferably Tiffany, but just not my Tiffany, dude. She's busy that day, I'm pretty sure. In the absence of a nearby and willing Tiffany, a wood-burning slow combustion heater or gas heating is looking pretty good. But for Christ's sake, dude, whatever you do, do not move an outdoor gas heater indoors, because this is such a great way to poison everyone with carbon monoxide. So definitely don't do that. Outdoor gas appliances have to remain outdoors. Essentially, cooking and heating during power failures are best handled by non-electrical energy sources because they'll just consume too much battery storage too quickly, and they can be so easily handled by alternative energy sources like LPG in bottles. You want to reserve your stored electrical energy for those things that demand actual electrical energy, right? You don't want the perishable food at home to spoil. You want to be entertained, right? You want to stay in touch with the outside world. And for that, you are going to need proper AC electricity. And you're going to need to at least ballpark how much of that you need. So I did this rough energy budget in my head, okay? A refrigerator is about 1 kilowatt hour per day, roughly. And that's going to depend on what time of the year it is and where the fridge is, what kind of fridge it is, variables of that nature. But, 1 kilowatt hour per day for a reasonably modern fridge, yeah. So it might be a good idea, I think, to put all of the perishable stuff in the one refrigerator and concentrate on keeping that one chilled when the power goes down. Perhaps your second fridge full of all of that beer can just take a break, right? You can put a couple of cans in the fridge at a time, in the cold fridge at a time. If the power is down for 24 hours, you're going to need about 1 kilowatt hour for that one operational refrigerator, okay? Then a TV, lights, electronics, probably about 1.5 kilowatt hours. That's just a rough estimate as well. And maybe a contingency for unforeseen electrical usage because perhaps someone in your domicile, they can't live without a curling wand and a blow dryer or something. Let's add about half a kilowatt hour for emergencies of this nature. So if you had a total of 3 kilowatt hours of battery storage per day that the power is down, that's going to be quite a reasonable backup energy budget. This is a closer look at the Bluetti AC300. That's the bigger box on top. And underneath it is the B300 lithium iron phosphate battery unit. The AC300 inverter unit is rated at 3 kilowatts of pure sine wave AC. That's the power it'll provide. And the B300 battery stores 3.072 kilowatt hours of energy. And perhaps you find that just a little confusing, right? I get that. You just have to remember that power and energy are different things. Power is the one in watts, and it's the time rate of consumption of energy, which is the one in kilowatt hours. If you use a lot of power, you drain the energy in the battery quickly. That's how this works. Energy is just like water in a tank. There's a fixed amount when the tank is full, right? Power is how hard you open the tap. I've reviewed the AC300 unit's little brother, the AC200 Max, which is still quite powerful at 2 kilowatts of inverter and 2.048 kilowatt hours of stored energy in the battery, and it's all in one box. It's lower power than the AC300 system, less energy, but a lot more portable. Link in the description for that. It's still a viable option on the home front, but a lot friendlier for camping and boating and working off the grid, things of that nature. The big trick with the AC300 is the B300 battery modularity. You can add up to 4 B300 batteries for a total of 12.288 kilowatt hours of energy, which is a huge amount of total energy storage for home emergencies. You can charge the unit off the mains or by solar. It's got an onboard solar charge controller. You can even do both at the same time. So solar cells plus mains power at once to recharge quickly. If you pay to get it wired in with the right hardware, the AC300 will even function as a proper uninterruptible power supply. So if you've got some widget at home, a computer system or medical equipment, whatever, that cannot lose power, albeit briefly, then the AC300 is designed to facilitate that seamless transition from mains power to backup power if the grid fails. The AC300 has 6 240 volt AC general purpose outlets on the front, together with 12 volts DC out, one 100 watt USB-C port to fast charge a modern laptop, plus 4 18 watt USB-A ports for sundry electronic devices, and you drive it using the touchscreen control panel on the front or the Bluetti smartphone app for iOS or Android. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity are available there. Plus, there's a couple of inductive charge pads on top for the phones, 15 watts apiece there. You can run all of the outputs simultaneously, provided you don't exceed the total 3 kilowatts of maximum output. So what I would do in a power failure is I'd put the AC300 and the B300 battery packs somewhere dry and secure in the home, and I would keep them there, away from water, humidity, risk of burst pipes, etc. And I'd run one extension cord safely to the main living area and another one to the kitchen, and then I would use power boards at those locations to run the electricity to the different devices that I need to power up. In the bedrooms, I just light them with battery-powered LED lights until the power comes back. And dude, at the risk of going all OH&S on you, extension cords are a dead set tripping hazard, so take some time routing them to minimise the risks, especially at the top of a staircase. And bear in mind that the power coming out of the Bluetti is just as dangerous as the power that you get out of the wall when the grid is operating. So take appropriate safety precautions, such as having dry hands and using undamaged power cords and appliances. Essentially, what you have to do is you just have to decide how much battery storage you're going to need between 1 and 4 of those B300 modules. You daisy chain them together with the supplied high-capacity cables. The system boots up when you press the power button, and you are good to go with a viable electrical supply whenever the power goes down. And personally, I think that about 3 kilowatt hours per day is a pretty reasonable budget for making do during a power failure for your average Australian household. If you've got 3 kilowatt hours, a bit of gas for some cooking and some prudent battery LED lighting, a power failure is not actually going to be all that intolerable.